Well, speaking of big-time markets, I want to go to our resident lumber expert that we check in with each week at this time. Yeah, it's Robin Cross of StoneX in Chicago. Always look forward to our talk here, Robin. A few weeks ago when you and I talked, I think we had the lumber market around $500, and now we're way in the sevens again. So we've rallied back quite a bit. But I just wondered, with all this talk about shipping delays and everything affecting other markets, what's that doing to the lumber and housing market?
Good morning, Marlon. Thank you for having me. Well, first let's go over the prices, and then I'll get into all that. So November's trading this morning at $757.60, down 70 cents, with 25 cars. So still very light volume we're seeing here. January is $786.60, down 540. That's soon to be your lead, but you can't tell by volume because there's only 5 trades over there. Yeah, as you were saying, Marlon, you hit it right on the head, and the theme of my talk this morning. September lumber expired just 4 weeks ago, right, at $454. In real money, which I always like to tell the viewers so they could really understand what's behind this. A car of lumber is 4 single-family homes, right? That was about $50,000 a car at expiration. And I would consider that value around there. $450 coming from a 1,700 high, I would definitely consider that value. The market's currently trading around, I just gave you the price, $755. That's about $83,000 a car. So in 4 weeks, an extremely light, record-setting, low-volume rally, we have doubled the price of a lumber car, right? Meanwhile, I also track the cash market versus futures, right? So meanwhile, in the physical cash market, we rallied from $380 swing blowout low after making a 1,700 high, which I always like to say that, to yesterday's print or current cash market is around $580. So that was basically a $200 light volume oversold rally there as well. But I definitely believe the market is price sensitive, and if you look at the basis or the difference between cash and futures, historical good basis in lumber is about $20-25. We would be all over that as traders. And we've been sitting on an average at $200. So I definitely still call this a hedger's delight, right? But the one issue that I'm having, and if you remember our conversation from a couple weeks ago, I do believe the market's price sensitive, and we're obviously trying to find a tradable level after the major ranges we had this year, right? So I do believe the market's cheap under 500, but I definitely think that the market's expensive over 800, 700 you could even say. I think with all the shipping issues we're seeing from the West Coast, it's not necessarily the lumber components, because stuff that's made in America, you guessed it, we could definitely get those items, but it's all these housing components that come from China and overseas that are really tied up in the West Coast. So, it's on one hand, you want to buy the lumber when it's cheap, but at the second hand, you don't know if you're going to get the materials, the other building materials you need before, lumber's got a shelf life. So this is like a tricky balance that we're trying to figure out right now. I do hope, the U.S. steps up and does what we have to do to get that stuff moving, because I think that we're going to see, further inflation, inflation across the whole spectrum of building components, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that I'm happy to report is, I've been really kind of harping about open interest. We were near literally record low open interest. So during this rally, we have built some new outside participants into the market, but because of the extreme basis, one can deduct that it's probably not lumber guys involved. But we did violate, on the technical side, which I don't talk about too much, but we did get over the 50, 100, 200-day moving average. So, in any other market, lumber included, when that usually happens, you get some outside participation. But I still believe that regardless of how many funds or how many algorithmic traders are buying in here, guys should really look at their lumber pile. We're going into winter. We're not going into spring. If we started building this rally going into the spring, I could say, yeah, I think it could stick. But I just think there's too much risk at this time for guys to go unhedged. And that's kind of what I'm looking at today, bud.
All right. Well, thank you, Robin, for the update. Always good to hear from you. Robin Cross of StoneX in Chicago. I'll be back in a moment. I'll take a look at the latest in your cattle and hog markets next.